Hello everybody, welcome to another video. I'm excited to have on Mr. Chad McLean, Storm's Technical Director. Chad's been really popular here lately, so I'm super glad that he could fit me into his schedule. He's been talking to everybody and their dog and their cat and guinea pigs and whatever else. So what's going on at HQ right now?
That's a quiet Friday around HQ right now. There is not much happening.
Yeah.
Kendall's doing a ball test with Alex. I popped in for about 20 minutes ago. Cool stuff happening. So, yeah, we just wrapped up the Axiom Challenge yesterday. That was kind of cool to watch. Some
Yeah.
monster scores from those guys. Loved shooting 240, getting my butt beat,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's against a friend, so it's all good.
Yeah. All right, so we've got some new stuff to talk about. We've got the Parallax, the Trend, and the IQ Tour Nano Pearl. Anything that has to do with Nano, I'm always going to be excited about, so I'm looking forward to talking about that stuff. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the Electrifies. They came out about a month ago or so, here fairly recently, a couple weeks. It's kind of a new direction for the hotline, going to a lower RG core and kind of a medium-low differential. So talk a little bit about developing the Electrifies.
I see you posted a picture on Instagram of it. That's a dope shot.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
have
I tried
to
to do a little
steal
Chad.
that.
Yeah, I tried to do a little Chad photo. Got some inspiration. So
That's tight. I like it.
yeah,
Is that your press?
yeah, sitting on my brand new Jayhawk tri-oval. So I got the good
Ooh,
stuff.
fancy.
Yeah.
God, balling out of control. Yeah, the Electrify. So we wanted to put a little bit more performance down there in that hotline
Uh-huh.
because feel like there's not going to be a lot of people that want to throw a house ball after all this virus stuff. So putting a
Yeah.
little bit more performance down in the bottom, getting them what feels like and what kind of performs like a higher tier ball was not opposed by very many at all. So we did it, and it's like you said, a little bit amped up IQ Tour. RG's
Yeah.
pretty low for that line. It's historically been high, and the diff has kind of been on the lower side of things as well. So it's actually stronger than an IQ Tour by the numbers. Just a
Yeah.
little bit cleaner, a little bit kickier. But if you look closely, the shape itself is the same as the old booster core. It
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't have a flip block on the bottom, doesn't have a slug, so lowers the differential, keeps the mass a little bit more center, less elongated throughout the x-axis, so the differential stays low. And the RG actually stays a little bit tucked on the lower side too. So freaking awesome ball for the buck.
Yeah, I think I bowl on a lot of high friction lane surfaces, and sometimes if you have higher volume on lower or on higher volume on higher friction surfaces, once they start breaking down, it can get a little tricky once the heads start going. And but having something that kind of having a core that controls the lane a little bit better, but having a cover that still will get through some of that early friction and kind of control things a little bit more down lane, I think is going to be a great piece for mid to later in blocks. And the matchups were kind of hit and miss for me. I think that they had their place, but I tend to favor the hustle line a little bit more, and this core kind of goes a little bit more the way of the hustles, and I think those have been pretty popular on the
Mm-hmm.
roto side. So I think
Yeah,
all good
still going
things.
strong.
Yeah, I think all good things for the Electrifies, and they look sharp and they smell great.
All right, good.
The the Pearl Electrify is kind of bright and vibrant and right in your face. It stands out on a pro shop shelf. And the Electrify Hybrid's a little bit more understated, but once you get it in your hands and you look at it, I mean, it's really sharp and stands out too. So really
Mm-hmm.
like the looks of both of those, and they're awesome. So
All right.
excited
Yeah,
about
the
those.
Pearl obviously a little bit cleaner, a little bit straighter.
Mm.
We thought since ladies typically have slower ball speeds, they might want that option, but a dude would still throw that
Yeah,
and love it.
I'm
I
gonna
think it's
rock the
pretty
hell out of
sharp.
it. So I'm actually drilling those left-handed. And I was talking to Mike Sinek yesterday, and mentioned about I'm doing kind of the lefty righty thing and trying to get my lefty side up to snuff, but I tend to use the bottom half of the catalog because there's so much free friction and there's so much boom
Mm-hmm.
down lane. And when I've been watching the videos you guys have been putting out for the new stuff, and Hank's always got some kind of off the wall
Three
layout,
inch pin,
and
yeah.
yeah, 3 inch, two
Yeah.
inch pin or whatever, and that's that's really what it takes to get it done on the left side because
Mm-hmm.
the hookier,
Yep.
boomier stuff is a little bit rough to keep on the correct side of the head pin.
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind
We
of
were talking
interesting.
about that this week, actually,
Yeah.
his layouts and how much he needs to shut his angles down a little bit more on the left side. So yeah, totally get it.
So yeah. So good deal. Those are going to be I'm going to be pretty excited about those on the left side of the lane. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk. Speaking of the new stuff, let's talk about the new stuff. We got brand new tech for the Parallax. We've got a proven cover on the Trend, plus that piston core, which I think is really going to get to shine in this cover. I
Yeah,
thought it shined in
yeah.
the Pro Motion just fine. I've got extra ones, and I'm a big fan of the Pro Motion myself. But
One of my faves too. Yep.
yeah, I really do like that core, and I think it's going to be able to really shine in this one. And then we have the IQ Tour Nano Pearl. And you had mentioned something in your talk with Belmo the other day, saying when you're testing out new covers, generally you put them on the Centripetal C3 core that's in the IQ Tour series. It's a very readable core, and it really lets the cover differences stand out. When I was out testing the Tour versus the
Mm-hmm.
Emerald versus the IQ Tour Nano Pearl, you can see the familiarity of the core, but you can see it really lets all those covers. It really lets the attributes and the reaction characteristics stand out. So,
Mm-hmm.
was the IQ Tour Nano Pearl something intentional that you were working on, or were you testing out a cover and it just ended up being kind of a happy accident?
No, it was intentional. The balls get developed for a myriad of different reasons. Needs of tour, needs of uh, general amateur public leaguers that we make the balls for. But this one, we were looking at the product line and noticed a gap, a sizable gap, especially between the IQs and like an Axiom sort of
Yeah.
look, phase
Mm.
two sort of look. And so this brings those balls a little bit closer together. So it was based off of just a hole in the product line, honestly, this one.
Yeah, so um yeah, that's a really nice spot to fill because it was kind of, and even kind of filling with some stuff on the roto side in the HP3 line. They have some really strong stuff. I think that the Wild Streak is kind of it's kind of going sideways into the IQ Tour. Obviously, very different stuff going on with the core, but as far as a hook potential standpoint and whatever else, the IQ Tour Nano Pearl is several boards stronger than the Tour, either the other IQ Tours, but they're not quite as with the lower differential. It's not quite as boomy down lane as a Phase 2, or not quite as much overall
Yeah.
traction as that or the Axiom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what is the difference? I noticed that it's Nano Pearl on it and not NRG Pearl. Is there a difference there, or was it more of a marketing thing, or what can you tell me, if any, about that?
The From what I understand, well, NRG and Nano predate my time here,
Mm,
but from its etymology that I've paid attention to, they're used interchangeably.
okay.
Overseas, sometimes they want a different logo on a ball. Sometimes they
Okay.
want it spelled out. So they're both the exact same thing,
Okay.
honestly speaking.
Okay. And something anytime there's any Nano to be talked about, it's one of my favorite covers, favorite reactions ever, and I've sent you plenty of messages kind of badgering and poking and whatever else about please just put Nano anything on anything.
Please,
So,
please.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But the thing about Nano for me is it blends the lane really well, but it doesn't quit on friction, and that's something big that I've noticed with this one specifically. Is it just never stops? I mean, once it picks up, it keeps
Hmm.
continuing and keeps continuing, gives you that round controllable shape of the IQ Tour Solid. I think it plays left a little bit better. You can get deeper with it and stay with it a little bit longer. But yeah, it's a whole heaps of fun and my wife really loves it. She's a big fan of the Emerald, and this gives her the same kind of look, but if we're on some heavier
Yeah.
conditions, she really likes the shape that the IQ line gives her. But this one will pick up sooner, hook more, be more continuous. So it's she's really liking it so far as well, but I'm
Good,
really
good.
really digging it. So
Yep, it's on several notes there.
yeah, very cool. So let's move over to the trend Belmo ball number 4.
And yeah,
And number 1, this looks really sharp. It smells really sharp. Or smell. I don't know if something can smell sharp, but it smells good, I guess.
impressive. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
blueberry. Whew.
Yeah, and then R2S Pearl, something that you guys have put on a bunch of stuff for a number of years, but it's one of the, I mean, whenever you're looking for something reliable, it's hard not to go to the well, especially when the well is so deep and so good. So, and then putting it on something like the piston core, with the spec cover on the ProMotion, it's got some very dominant characteristics, I would say. For me, it kind of creates its own shape on the lane, but I think those who really do like the ProMotion see that shape and how that core stands out, and it's kind of on steroids in the trend. It's a more kind of visibly, I guess, visibly impressive ball motion, or what most people are wanting to see when they go in and think, well, I want a pearl ball that I can use on league that gets down there and turns sideways. I mean, the trend just kind
Hmm.
of pings everything for your average league bowler right across the board.
Yeah, it's interesting. When balls like a marble pearl are a little bit too rounded, a little bit too archy,
Mm-hmm.
and high road pearl is still the cleanest ball to date
Mm-hmm.
that we have in the line. I mean, with that RG and it's R2S pearl, so it's as straight as it's going to get through the fronts. So when that ball misses the spot, and something like an IQ Emerald or again a marble pearl a little bit too rounded, this fills right in between that niche. So it revs up and doesn't miss the spot like a lower RG, but it certainly doesn't go nearly as long before it wants to make its turn like a high road part, like a high road core would.
Yeah, and it's also a little bit rounder, not quite as quick as something like an astrophysics. So if you're looking for that cover strength or that kind of friction response, it definitely it fills another gap right in there. So R2S Pearl and Spec R2S Pearl and Spec Solid are about as different as you can get as far on the other end of the
Sure.
spectrum. So even though it says Belmo on it and it's got the piston core in it, we're talking about two wildly different reactions on the lane, and they're so different that I probably not even going to compare them in a video. I might in something down the road just to kind of show the differences, but I mean, trend is something.
Yeah, the differences are pretty glaring with those two.
Yeah. So, you were also talking something else with Belmo about marketing and having cool names on stuff, and the trend is another one, kind of like the Electrify Pearl, that's really going to stand out on a shelf. Whereas
Hmm.
something like the Torrent that you mentioned was a great ball, it just it just kind of had some muted colors and didn't really stand out, and it came out right at the same time with the Timeless too, and that was the big buzz ball. That was the first Belmo ball that everybody was
Yeah,
talking
sure
about, and
was.
so the Torrent kind of got lost in the shuffle, and I think it was one
Yep.
of those rocket
Yep.
ship winter solid type, just really good
Hmm.
performance balls that didn't quite make it, and so a lot of the balls here recently, the colors have gotten brighter, and we've got you make some good looking stuff anyway. But talk a little bit more about that on the marketing side of things, and how important naming and colors and
Oh,
stuff.
geez. Yeah. Yeah, it's just as important as the performance of the ball, especially in this day and age when balls aren't just black anymore.
Yeah.
There's so many options. So, like, I just finished up another color sample earlier this week for another release down the road, and luckily it was the first crack at it. Came out freaking unbelievably
Oh,
gorgeous,
cool.
and it doesn't look like anything else. So those two things are usually what we have to, dig deep on. Make sure there's nothing else that looks like it, and that it is good looking by itself if it does, because there's only so many colors that we could
Yeah.
use. So trying different backers and different types of liquids, dyes, powder pigments, micas, and things to create different hues and shades are always what we're doing down in the lab. And but eventually, every color is going to get used. So um, now I'm really starting to pay attention to the types of materials. Like Spec does, you put the same dye load in a spec ball as you would an R2S ball and get two completely different colored balls.
Okay.
So paying attention to things like that are pretty important too. But yeah, the inspiration for colors can come from anywhere. I walk around just around town, and if I see like a cool color combo on some interior design at a restaurant or something, I'm like, that's kind of cool, and take a photo and try and put it down on paper and send it down to the lab to create some Pantones. So yeah, the color selection process is fun. And you typically historically see storm balls a little bit darker than flashier. And rotogrip balls are just the opposite. Rotogrip balls a little bit more contrast. I think of No Rules, that green and orange
Yeah.
and black just pops, and storm usually a little bit on the darker undertones like the astrophysics, blue, black, purple.
Yeah.
You don't really see it flash too much at you as it goes down the lane, but still there's enough contrast as it sits on the wall for the shelf appeal aspect. And some balls just die like the Torrent because of its shelf appeal. It just wasn't there, and that's fine. Balls all have their life expectancy and stuff, so it is what it is. But we try and make them different and try and make them unique.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that you mentioned that the about the inspiration, because people ask me a lot of times. It's like, okay, or if you were gonna build your perfect ball, what are you gonna do? And so I start thinking about colors, and it's kind of like, well, I mean, there's, like you said, there's only so many colors that you can use, and sometimes when you sit down to actually think about something, it can be a little bit like writer's block, and just say that
Oh
nothing.
yeah.
And so yeah, you could just be walking down the road or walking along outside and just happen to see something that starts the wheels turning. And I do bridge inspection for the state of Kansas, and so I'm out all the time seeing all kinds of wild stuff. And we were at a box culvert the other day, and I saw some dragonflies floating around, and one of them was, obsidian, that black, and then the same teal color as in the Phase 3, and so I'm looking at this dragonfly, and it just made me think Phase 3 because it was kind of the same colors, and so it was,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's, the Phase 3 is definitely one that looks pretty unique and that doesn't look like anything else out there, and then the IQ Emerald, even just using, it's more of a single color, but there's nothing else out there that looks like it. So I think that it takes an awful lot of work to come up with that stuff, and then come up with names, and then cover stock names and core names and whatever else. You guys put a bunch of work into in developing all that stuff, and come out pretty sharp.
Nice. Yeah.
So
We have fun.
I like it.
We got some funny names that float around here. Names I prefer not to share on air.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Whew,
I'm sure that
but there's
there's
some good
some
ones.
really really clever stuff that you just can't end up using, which is either
Yeah.
fortunate or unfortunate, I guess, depending on how you look at
Yeah.
it. But so let's talk a little Parallax now. Everything is kind of brand new with the Parallax. You've got the Traction X7 cover, and then you've got the Aeroflow core. So
Hmm.
before we get into the Parallax, it's a hybrid cover. It's an asymmetric core, but you're also discontinuing the physics. And when you put so much effort and so much work, and you talked about the core development, which I'll ask you about here in a second with Belmo. But when you put so much work into a ball and it's so good and it's popular and it had a great lifespan, how tough is it to still go on ahead and discontinue that and say, we still need to, it's a great ball, but we need to move on?
Yeah, that's majority speaking, majority, whatever that word is
Yeah, yeah.
speaking. It is dictated. Sales dictates what production does. Sales drives production.
Yeah.
So in our production meetings, we go through the sales numbers, and physics still selling great, but something's got to go to make room for another SKU. There's many around here who would love to only have like three SKUs, and be done with it, and still sells just as many balls. But that's just not the reality that
Mm-hmm.
we've built for ourselves. The industry has built for themselves over the years, especially good grief in Asia, where it's over 100 OEMs a year, different
Yeah.
types of balls. It's
Uh-huh.
literally 2 balls a week. But the physics was still selling good, but it needed to. It had its time. It had run its course. It's well. How old is that now? Gosh, I'd have to.
Oh, it's a year and a half, 2 years probably. So
Yeah,
it had a solid lifespan. So.
yeah. It was the next one on the chopping block, and because it was a hybrid,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Parallax ultimately became a hybrid. Yeah, October of 2018. Then it was the physics is time to be sent off to greener pastures. Um, so yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow. I think the Code Black was another one of those two. Still
Yeah.
selling
Mm-hmm.
phenomenally. It was still selling uh, higher than what would dictate a ball to be discontinued. But the next ball, I think, was the Astrophysics, and the Code Black had run its course, so it,
Mm-hmm.
it had to go too.
Yeah. And isn't the Premier line, is that probably the most popular line, or is that what the biggest portion of the ball sales, or what people are most interested
Hmm.
in, I guess, or
Yeah, yeah, but both are the priciest balls, obviously, the most technology associated with it, and we do sell the most balls, not out of this plant, but in the industry,
mm-hmm.
uh, out of the Premier line.
So and yeah, I think I've asked you before about kind of if you have something like that is popular, but if you try to work around it with future releases, like having something like a Phase 2 and an IQ Tour Solid and a High Road be around for so long, it's nice to have those kind of mainstays that people can go to and they know exactly what they're getting. But at the same time, how much do you actually work or have to work around those two when you're designing and building newer stuff?
I mean, like high roads and things.
Yeah, yeah. So if you've already got that kind of reaction spot or that kind of slot in the line, and you're still kind of you're working on new stuff, how much do you work around that? Or
Oh yeah, balls like that, they aren't going away anytime soon. There's such staples now of high roads and high road pearls, phase twos, pitch blacks, IQ tours. We know they're not going to go away. So we do build a lot of stuff around those reactions. We
okay,
don't need another high road type of reaction in the
yeah,
line, because what's better than a high road?
yeah,
So yeah, we definitely, those are the pillars of what a lot of the rest of the product line are kind of built around. Sure. It's a good
cool.
point. I never really thought of it like that, but yeah, that's basically what we do in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think that you would kind of open yourself up to flack if you said, okay, well we got this new ball coming out, we're going to go on ahead and discontinue the IQ Tour. And even if the new ball is great, you're always going to have some people that don't match up with it as well as they matched up with the Tour Solid, and then say, okay, well they discontinued. Why did they discontinue this for that? But you also have the other camp sometimes that'll say, well, this ball's been around for however many odd years. So,
Mm-hmm.
but like you said, it is what it is, and we have got the Parallax now. So,
Parajacks,
yeah, the
pallet
Parallax or
racks.
whatever. Yeah,
We've
yeah,
got a lot of them.
whatever everybody calls it. But you mentioned something. Let's start with the core, and you mentioned something on the Belmo stream about how difficult, time-consuming, expensive it is to produce new cores. So, what are some of the steps that you go through in getting a new core and getting it kind of set solidly, or set, I guess, before you go to mold production?
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of
So,
get that direction?
geez, I got my feet wet in this a little bit before Alex Hoskins got his role as the R&D manager when he came in off the road as a RSM. I went to go get trained on this CAD imaging stuff. Man, it starts with just conceptualizing, just drafting up something that you think might work. And when you've been in it long enough, you know where, based on what has worked well in the past, where cuts go, where cuts need to go, rounds, extrusions, chamfers, you name it. And you kind of get an eye for it. You get a knack for, okay, well, this one's kind of more center dense, so it's going to be a little bit lower RG, um, and vice versa. So we needed something that was a little bit higher RG. And Alex drew, this is Alex's baby. He drew this one up,
Okay.
and it's that giant hole through the center of it. The flow through
Mm-hmm.
creates a higher RG type of part. So again, our Premier line ASIMs have been pretty low RG, and we needed something a little bit higher RG. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where this one comes in. But there's so much stuff that you have to think about. Not only just what gap does it fill in, is production even able to run that? How easy are these things
Okay.
to demold? When they go to jig it and drill that initial pin through the top where that weight block fits into the next mold and then the mold after that until ultimately the cover stock is poured around it. Are they going to know which way to put that part into the machinery so they can jig
Okay.
it the right way? So how easy is it for the workers to use downstairs? So there's so much to it. And then luckily, the place that we get the master molds from, I wish I had one in here to show you. The master molds, they're made out of solid hunks of aluminum, and he's just
Okay.
down the street. So a lot of the guys in R&D will just pop down there, and it starts off with plastic
Okay.
molds, and then we move to urethane molds, and then finally the ones that the production uses. So it's a very long process. It's very easy to get in like a wet sample of a cover stock from our vendor, and just pour it on a ball. And then we can give them results right then and there. But
Okay.
to create the things that we actually need to pour these cores out of is pretty arduous, to say the least.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I think that that would be a rather, because this is really the first core that I can think of that actually has a hole all the way through it. I mean, I'm sure it's probably been done before, or conceptualized or something anyway, but we've seen scoops and voids and
Mm-hmm.
cutouts and whatever else, but having a hole all the way through it, and obviously it's filled with the filler material. I
Yes.
guess it's not an
So if you
actual it's
get
not an
in there,
actual hole or void.
it's
Yeah.
not gonna affect the diffs that much, especially the intermediates because of that void. Um, and the Crux Prime was a lot like that too, or in any Crux part for that matter. So typically, when you drill pin up, you're getting into the side of the weight block. You're going to lower the RG,
Hmm.
raise the diff by making the core much taller than it is wide. But with the Crux Prime, it was the exact opposite. You had to drill it pin down, and pin down actually made the ball hook more
Mm.
and hook sooner. So it's a little bit atypical. In this one, we're diving into we're doing some deep cuts on this weight block. Steve, Alex, and I are going to do a 3-part test where Steve does 3 different parallax, 3 different PSA locations. I'm doing 3 different pin locations, and then Alex is going to do 3 different pin buffers.
Okay.
All the other 2 parameters for each of us stay the same. So
Okay.
we'll be doing that, videos, Specto, the whole nine, and it should be pretty interesting with something like this that has a giant cavity through the middle of it.
Yeah, and I did notice I drilled mine pin up, and I did notice that I really didn't take out a whole lot when I drilled the thumb. So
Mm-hmm.
I did
Yep.
notice
Yep.
that. Now, since you are talking about Specto, that's actually my next question. When you go to test the balls, and when you obviously have Specto hooked up, it gives you a bunch of information. But how much do you pay attention to the numbers versus still watching the ball reaction with your own eyes? You said before that Alex Hoskins has one of the better eyes for ball reaction that you know of, and so numbers don't always tell the story. I mean, Specto gives you a bunch of really good information, but how much do you pay attention to the numbers versus the ball reaction, and how do they really kind of work together?
Yeah. If it's something new, a new core or a new cover, we dive hard into those numbers. We're looking at, oh gosh, on the back end of Specto, it gives us something ridiculous like 15 places after the decimal.
Okay.
For like like what board you're hitting and what speed you're hitting and your angle. That's a lot of data to crunch. Um, so we're hard to the paint with new things like that. But for any sort of test like what Kendall's doing down there right now, he'll throw the shots and Alex explained it the other day, I think on a live stream that Storm did. You do 15 shots, re-oil, because after 15 shots, the lane goes away, basically before it starts to create adverse ball reaction. Then,
Yeah.
if it's a 2-ball test, repeat the process. You get 15 shots to keep it within the window range that he's put forth. It's a half mile an hour. You got to keep it within. You have to lay it down on the same board, so you got a half a board in either direction. And your launch angle has to be within 2/10 of a degree, which is not a whole lot, and that's the hardest part is
Yeah.
the launch angle. So if you keep it, you have to get as many of those shots within the 15 within that range. Crunch the numbers, so on and so forth. But yes, you're exactly right. There's a human error to the ball development that we want to pay attention to. That's why we don't use robots for our testing. Although Steve Klimpkin is a robot, he's not human. Um, it's offending to watch him do a ball test because you feel like, why am I even bowling? He's so freaking good. It's so impressive to watch what he does. And I'm not just saying that because I have to report to him. He is an absolute machine. So definitely one of the better ball testers we have here. But we want to get his feedback. We want to know what the ball rolls like if you miss right or you get a little bit, thumb down it and shove it over your toe or both toes. uh, it's so yeah, we look at it both. So once we get done doing that test, Alex will be like, all right, we'll go play around a little bit, move around and try some different hand positions, some different speeds, move your feet, and let's see what the ball does when it, encounters friction way too early or you get it in the puddle in the middle. We want to see that. Does the ball pick up, still carry, go through the deck all right? Because there's all those human elements to it. So we look at them both very equally, especially when it's a ball like, an IQ Tour Nano that's kind of established, but kind of not. We still want to
Yeah.
know what it does, but we want to see what it's going to do for the general public.
Cool. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the new cover now. Traction X7, I believe it is. I've got an overseas Halo burn that's got Microtrax Pearl on it.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of, and that's kind of Microtrax is kind of Roto's code for Nano, isn't it?
Nano,
As far
yeah.
as okay. So the Parallax feels a lot like kind of a Nano Pearl. I know it's a hybrid, but it feels kind of like a Nano Pearl reaction, like what I get out of my Halo burn. So what kind of makes up the cover stock, and what can you tell me about that? Because it hooks a lot. It handles friction really well. It doesn't burn up on friction, and it's kind of clean and kind of quick, but it's not overkill. It's not going to go long and turn sideways, but there's a nice blend of everything that just reminds me of kind of a Nano Pearl type of reaction.
That's a pretty good observation. That was kind of the design intent behind it. Fit something between R2S and something like a Nano. So it's clean but not sideways. It's early but not stand up stand up rolly early. Uh, and it's honestly the best of all the different cover stocks. So it's, if you notice, it's also got a little bit slower oil absorption time. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. And that's been another thing that Alex and the guys in the lab have been developing with our vendor. Um, I can't tell you how many test balls they've poured. This cover's been in development for over 2 years now.
Yeah.
Because spec is hit or miss for some people. I personally love it.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan.
And the whole reason reactive balls were, I'm probably digressing quite a bit, but the whole reason reactive balls were made in the first place was so people didn't have to wipe off their balls. The balls would absorb the oil. So there's less, elbow grease for people. But when the oil sits on top of a spec ball, it can kind of lane shine up, and we get that. It's to be expected. It's logical. But so it doesn't get in to the pores nearly as quick as some of the others, but it's not nearly as slow. So yeah, I mean it's It's a good cover. Does that answer your question, or did I totally get off base?
No, no, I think that kind of answers the, like you said, it's kind of in between. It's not near as long and flippy as something like an astrophysics. It's not as early and round or kind of smooth as an Omega. The shape fits right in between there. The overall cover strength feels kind of like nuclear cell Omega Crux type of actual strength, but it fits
Hmm.
that little shape zone because we've got some. Again, I think it's another great, filling the gap type of reaction because we got the Omega, which is pretty early and smooth, and we got the Astro, which goes forever and makes a pretty big turn, and then something like the nuclear cell, which is almost like the astrophysics on steroids. I mean, it's
Hmm.
it's it's stronger, and it still has that flippy kind of motion. So the parallax really kind of, again, like the trend. I think it pings all of those kind of voids or holes or whatever else you'd want to have in ball reaction for what
Hmm.
versus whatever else we have in the line.
Yep. If I had to
So
rank those covers, I'd say NEX would be the strongest.
okay.
Strong as in early. How much oil does it need to kind of perform admirably? I'd go
Mm-hmm.
NEX without getting into all the subtle variances. I'd go NEX, NRG, uh, Spec, and probably TX or traction is a little bit more aggressive than Spec.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would go Spec R2 of the big ones
The
that
ones
we've
that you
kind
normally
of
use.
put out recently.
Okay. All right. So we got a bunch of good new stuff coming. August 7th is the release date, I believe, for those. I've got videos coming. I've got review videos coming out pretty soon. I imagine on the same day that this is going to air, also. So we should start seeing some review videos. You guys did plenty of great review videos. I like how and that's what people ask for is different layouts and show different testers, and you guys really go for it on all the new releases with the 7 ways and 6 ways and whatever else.
Yeah,
So it offers a bunch of
yeah.
different looks, and you get to see you swing the entire lane and play the rip it off the half board and send stuff flying everywhere. So what is, after talking about bowling ball stuff, so obviously there's so much more that goes into producing these bowling balls than just taking, okay, well, I like this cover and I like this core, let's smash them together and make them
Yeah.
smell good. So what is one thing that you wish that the public, the kind of the general public, understood when, this is kind of a vague general question, but what's one thing that you wish that the general public understood about what you guys do out there?
Huh, probably it's probably several things, and more may come to me as I talk. I think the amount of testing
Mm-hmm.
that we put in, just the time and the money, just the investment. I mean, we're all about R&D here. It's gosh, there's just so much going on all the time. Um, I've got I've got about 60 open ball projects on my wall right now of balls that are in development, and then we've got another dozen or so of new stuff always in the chute coming down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So when a company invests back into its R&D and its people, for that matter, which Storm does a lot,
Mm-hmm.
then you can't not succeed. So I think that's one thing. It's I see a lot of comments. Oh, let's do IQ Tour Core Phase Two cover.
Yeah.
Please do that, or please bring back this old ball like an X Factor. Well, our processes are nowhere near what they used to be when that X Factor was made.
Yeah.
It's a completely different building in the factory. The lines are different. The materials we're using are different. The
Mm-hmm.
molds are different. Nothing is set up to the jigs and the drilling. Everything is completely different. Nothing is set up in order to create one of these old balls that people want, unfortunately. And I wish we could, but it's just not that easy. Um, when we get those, please bring this ball back, sort of thing. I mean, there's some we can do. Some parts are a little older, and they're still, can be used with our systems like virtual gravities. That thing's been around a long time, and it's luckily we could still use that with our processes. But that's another thing. Uh, when people I don't like the fragrance of this ball. Uh, I wish I could get a storm ball without a fragrance. Well, you can. It's called Rotogrip. They're made in the same building, so
Yeah.
you can pick up a Rotogrip ball. It's the same stuff.
Yeah.
Um, that's another thing. So, and the fragrances are an interesting thing because what one person smells may not smell the same to someone else. So
Hmm.
it's a very touchy subject. I think one time we tried doing a Reese's peanut butter cup
Uh-huh.
fragrance, which I would have just been head over heels for. This is before my time, and even though all the fragrances we use are synthetic, there's no natural oils or anything in it.
Yeah.
It created an allergic response to some people that have peanut
Oh
allergies.
wow.
There's no peanuts in it.
Oh
It's
wow.
just what their mind, you
Yeah.
know, makes it come to fruition. So, uh, yeah, there's stuff like that is I think interesting, but people don't really know about too much.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm a big fan of the fruitier scents, and so I like all the blueberries that we've had, and
A
then
lot are. Yeah.
the grape on the Electrify hybrid. I really big fan of, and then of course some of the overseas stuff, the mulberry and the phase frenzy. I'm pretty partial
Hmm.
to. So all right.
Hmm.
So I think that's about all the questions I've got for you. And as much as we've talked about the tech stuff, and as much as goes into it, I mean, people love to talk tech. They love to talk layouts and surfaces, and even if they don't know what they're talking about, it's still fun to talk
They
about
like being, yeah.
and learn about it. I mean, that's really the only way to do it is figure it out is to talk about it and have discussions and whatever else.
Absolutely.
But sooner or later, you've got to get out of the pro shop and bowl. And now with hopefully places are starting to get open back up, and so all these new balls that are coming out, people can get them drilled and go out and use them and see how they react for you. So, do you have
Hmm.
any closing thoughts or any other interesting little tidbits or notes about any of the new ones that we haven't talked about?
Well, uh, I think they're going to be. Parallax is going to be interesting. It's gone banana sandwich in Korea right now.
Uh huh.
I'm sure you've seen a few of their videos. They've
Yeah.
gotten pretty cinematographic
Yeah, I
out there.
know.
Cinema fantastic
Oh my god.
with their
Yeah.
videos. Ginseng, they're killing it. They're smashing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, IQ Tour Nano, people are clamoring for that already. They think it's just going to be a hole in their bag, fill up a hole in their bag that
Uh
they've
huh.
been missing for quite a long time. And the trend is not meant for two-handers, but you can bend it like Belmo.
Yeah.
I've just posted a 50 strikes video on my YouTube. I was going to share it on Facebook probably soon. Half the hands, half the strikes to go with Belmo's
That's pretty good.
100 strikes video.
That's
So
pretty good.
you got a kick out of that. But if you watch it, I don't think I've ever had a ball go through the pins nearly as well in modern times as the trend. That sucker
Yeah.
hauls butt. So ball looks great, cool name, and it's got reaction to boot. So yeah, bunch of fun stuff, and we're working on more cool stuff coming. Uh, Urethane options we're doing right now quite a bit of.
Okay.
Uh, uh, Colors looking great. Everyone's very happy with the colors that are coming down the pipeline, and yeah, we're just trying to stay afloat in all this craziness right now. But it's going. We're still open. We're still going strong.
Yeah. And I think as long as you reminded me of that, it's something about the piston core that's kind of interesting. It is it's really and testing it against I've tested it against several different R2S Pearl balls, Astrophysics and High Road Pearl and the IQ Emerald, but the piston core is really boomy and continuous. I don't think the trend is quite as punchy as the Astro, but like you said, it almost kind of blends it out without blending it out too much, and I can get it back from anywhere. And for a symmetric core, it's got kind of some asymmetric tendencies, but with
Yeah,
still the
especially
kind
after you
of
drill into it. Yep.
the
Yep.
control of that symmetric core. So yeah, I think that one's going to be a good one. And really, all three of these, if anybody out there's looking to just you know you're getting back out of the virus thing and you're looking to just go buy a whole new bag, the Parallax, the Trend, and the IQ Tour Nano Pearl will all fit together pretty well in a tournament bag because you've got different hook potentials, you've got different shapes, you've got a lot of versatility just in those. If you were to go pick up 3 balls, those would all fit together really well in the bag. So
get an Axiom and a Electrify while you're at it. Those will fill in nicely too.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. I got a couple of those staring at me right now. So, all right. Well, thanks a bunch for clearing your schedule for me, fitting me in here, and really looking forward to the
I'll
new
do it
stuff.
again.
And yeah, I'm sure I'll have you on again in the future if you can fit me in and if I can afford your price. So.
Okay. Yep. Keep making good videos and don't buy too many OEM balls.
Yeah, I've got a problem. I've got a problem.
I know. I've got a problem too. Everyone makes fun of me.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a bunch, Chad McLean, Storm's technical director, and I've got a bunch of review videos coming out this weekend for all the good news stuff, and he's going to keep working on that stuff, and I'll keep working on my stuff. And thanks a bunch, and we'll talk to you later.